We have Immortal XMen issue 1. We have the conclusion to the Beyond storyline when it comes to Spider-Man. And oh yeah, did I like the second issue of Ghost Rider? All that and more on this week's episode of After the Poll. Guys, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. I'm your host, Mike Spider Slayer, always helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy. And After the Poll is a series where I take some of my most highly anticipated comic books and see if they lived up to the hype. And of course, I count down all the way from number 8 to number 1. But of course, most importantly, I give you my top 5. And these might not be my definitive top 5. And if you want to find out for sure what my final top 5 is, because I still have more comic books to read, check out my live stream every Tuesday night at 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time called Comic Book Weekly. I team up with my good friends Kat Comic Uno and Brant Fowler. We talk about the big books of the week. We talk about our top 5 comics of the week. We talk about the weekly news. We take your questions live. It's a great time. You guys have been joining in lately, and hopefully you join us this week. So again, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday night. So coming in at number 8, and you're probably not going to be surprised at this. No, don't think it's Spider-Man though. It is Immortal XMen issue 1. Now, I was very on the fence about this book to begin with. I have not been very fond of X-Men books lately. I pretty much read the main series, right? But when it came to this book, I was like, I'll give it a try. You know, it could be good. And I was definitely wrong when it comes to this book. This book was definitely a disappointment. This is written by Kieran Gillen. I can say, though, that the artwork does look very good in this, and Mr. Sinister does a lot of the narration in this book, which made it quite interesting at times. But the problem with this book is it was dense. And it wasn't even in the fact that it was interesting. This was all about our X-Men heroes talking in council because Magneto is leaving the council. And so right away they need to fill that void, find that spot. And what happens is they wind up coming to a vote, and they decided that Hope Summers is going to be taking Magneto's place because she's one of the 5 that resurrects all the people on Krakoa, and she feels that the resurrection people need a representation on the seat. So after a back and forth voting, which you get to see for most of the comic book, finally Hope Summers is actually voted in, and she's part of the council. Yippee-doo. Like, who cares, dude? Like, I don't need a 45-page comic book telling me and discussing who all our characters are around the table, who could be the next person to fill Magneto's void, and then have a little battle at the end of it. Like, I don't give a little flying shits about that. And that's the problem with this X-Men stuff. Like, I don't mind Krakoa, honestly, but we have too much sitting around discussing politics, and the resurrection protocols are an actual joke. There's just nothing at stake anymore when it comes to the X-Men. And when you have everyone that are friends or working together on the same island, it just doesn't have the same feel that X-Men once had. There's no adversaries, right? There's nothing there. So all they do is just bullshit and talk all day. So that's what makes this comic very, very boring, and I'm not going to be reading it going forward. And I don't think you should be either, unless you're into Krakoan politics. So that's just my 2 thoughts on this comic book. Moving on to number 7, we have the conclusion to Dark Ages. On my comic book haul, I was like, oh, how many more issues is this going to be? Is this going to be 8, 12, 10? This is it. I didn't realize that issue 6 is the end of this book. And I feel like when it has come to the Dark Ages, it started off really strong, got slow, and now all of a sudden it's just abruptly ends. And the way this book ends is it's very conveniently wrapped up in one issue, and I did not like that. I would have loved to seen this book get fleshed out a little bit more, kind of like Dark Knights of Steel, where it's like 12 issues. You could have explored a lot more of this world, go a lot more into the character development, and this book just ends. There are some very cool moments. The artwork looks very good in this book. I love the way the characters look. I love seeing Apocalypse in this book. He's very evil. He takes on Wolverine in this issue as well because he needs his adamantium, and I thought that was awesome. There's very destructive killings in this series overall, and that always made it for a good shock value. But at the end of the day, our heroes had to defeat Apocalypse before he basically destroyed the world and, evolved himself. So that was literally pretty much the issue. Again, it was just basically conveniently wrapped up and out of our heroes just coming up with a plan, defeating Purple Man so they weren't under the influence of Purple Man, teaming up with the other heroes and defeating Apocalypse. Again, very conveniently wrapped up in about 23 pages, and that's the end of the story. When I look at this series as a whole, like I said, it started off strong, stalled out, and abruptly ended. I wish I would have gotten a little bit more from this. Not the best work from Tom Taylor, but I can understand this was during COVID. Maybe he couldn't tell the exact story that he wanted to tell, but, it is what it is. I wish for a better comic, though. Okay, so now I promise you, the comics start getting pretty good from here on out. And number 6 goes to Hulk issue 5. This is Smastronaut part 5. Now, this book, I've said it already many times, the artwork in this book is absolutely phenomenal. I have fallen in love with Ryan Ottley's artwork all over again. It's so good. I mean, from the very opening page, you get dripping blood. And I think that's why Ryan Ottley decided, hey, I am going to do Hulk, because there's going to be a lot of fighting, a lot of smashing. And let me tell you, Thunderbolt Ross in this book, if you read Invincible and you remember who Conquest is, this guy right here, if you can see him, he reminds me of Conquest. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty awesome, dude. But this book is all about, like, I guess, the psyche, I guess. It's kind of hard to understand and explain, but Hulk has been keeping, or Bruce Banner has been keeping Hulk at bay and fueling his rage to stay at range Hulk, but controlling the body, right? So it's like Bruce Banner's mind, Hulk's body, and Banner is controlling it. That's why they call it like a starship, right? And so he keeps on leveling up the Hulk when he comes against some strong adversary. And in this book, he's going against a spider-radiated Peter Parker, right? Where he's this huge Hulk, and you get to see this big battle. But at the same time, it looks like that Banner is talking to Betty in this issue, but it's not really Betty. It's like a manifestation of his mind, and it keeps getting darker and darker, and it's become something more by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book. And we all know that this Dark Hulk is coming, this Titan or whatever he is that he's called. So you get to see the beginning stages of that. But getting to that journey, getting to that end of this issue was just a lot of fun, because you get to see Hulk level up through the stages. Like, he goes to stage 5 and he starts facing off against the gods, and then stage 6 he goes against demons, and it just get to see him going up against, all the odds, and until basically it breaks, right? That's what happens in this issue. So this was an entertaining read, a lot of smashing, destroying, great Ryan Ottley artwork. Not much has progressed the story, so I guess if there's a knock on this story, you can understand it. But I think once we get through this next issue, I think things are going to start ramping up here, in the conclusion to this Smastronaut thing. So yeah, if you're enjoying Hulk, let me know in the comments below. Now we enter the top 5. It's so cheesy, but I like doing it. Something is Killing the Children returns. That's right, guys. Issue 21, Erica Slaughter is back. kind of, in this issue. We get a whole other town, a whole other setup that's happening in this issue. The artwork is very familiar, the way you remember it. Right? Not too much that goes on in this issue. It's basically a setup issue of what things are to come. Okay? So here we get some of the characters. So there's a lot of talking in this issue. Like I said, a lot of setup, but this is intriguing stuff. Not like in Immortal XMen, because this is setting up the story. Basically, what happens is we have this little girl, once again, whose parents were murdered in front of her, and I think she was this Mexican girl, and she winds up getting picked up by this investigator, and she's brought to this bar. They're trying to assess the situation on what's going on. And throughout this book, you wind up getting the story on how it unfolded, on what this girl, Gabby, on what she has saw. And you could see that this girl is very distraught. She's disturbed. She's trauma. She's yelling out. She's acting out. She doesn't know how to process the situation that's happened. And I really enjoyed the characterization here of this girl, Gabby, because think about it. If you're this little girl that just witnessed your parents got murdered and your grandmother got murdered, how would you process that? How would you act out? Do you trust anybody? So it was a really emotional book. And so by the time you wind up getting to the end of this book, you wind up seeing an image that she saw towards the end of the book of the person that actually murdered her grandmother and her mother and whatnot. And this thing was quite weird. It looked like human, but it had a shoulder that was detached and it had an eyeball popping out of it. And I was like, dude, that's pretty dark shit right there. And as this girl is crying and trying to, again, process everything and kind of reliving everything in her mind, Erica Slaughter makes her appearance in the book for the first time in a while. And she says, you want to talk? And that's how the issue ends. Really good book. Very intriguing. Can't wait to see what happens. I mean, this book could easily be my #1 book for the week. But there were a lot of great books this week, guys. And like I said, this is more of a setup than anything. But I think James Tynion's got something special here in store for us when it comes to this next chapter of Something is Killing the Children. Coming in at number 4, this goes to Ghost Rider issue 2. Guys, I want to thank you so much for recommending Ghost Rider to me. I really loved the first issue, and I loved how the ghost was trapped inside the human. I love that element, and I was very hesitant about even this second issue because they already resolved that whole thing in one issue, and I thought, oh, here we go, now it's gonna suck, But after reading this second issue, I love the horror element of this book. It's kind of like a one and done, but it is an ongoing story. It just seems like the major plot is just taking longer to develop with these investigators and stuff like that. But until then, you're going to see Johnny Blaze come across these demons, right? So let's look at the artwork. Very dark, very gritty, something that you would expect from a horror book. And I loved every single minute of it. Here we got that private investigator. I forgot her name. Her name is Agent Warroad. I think that's her name. And here it is again, horror-like feels, just things that that you would expect in a horror book that make it a horror book, right? All right, so let's talk about this book a little bit. So in this issue, we get to see Johnny Blaze, who has escaped that town that trapped his Ghost Rider inside of him, right? And whenever there's a demon around or something that he's going to have to fight, it feels like that the Ghost Rider comes out of Johnny Blaze. But Johnny just doesn't recognize that. He doesn't know how to contain that. He doesn't understand that yet. Things are off, right? So he's trying to deal with him being Ghost Rider again. And in the meantime, you're learning about these private investigators that are going to investigate or find Johnny Blaze. And we get this agent by the name of Agent Warroad, who is very, I guess, supernatural in herself, where she can see things in the future, but bad things that are very dark, things that are going to happen. Like when she was a kid, she drew this black scribble on her loose leaf paper, and her teacher asked her, well, what is that? And she goes, that's your liver with cancer. And the teacher got a diagnosis in in 2 weeks, and she found out that she had cancer. And then you wind up finding out that I think it was her mother or something like that, that she was having a baby. But then in 2 weeks later, that she had that same prediction that her baby was stillborn. It was so dark, and I was just like, oh my god, that's crazy. So I was really into that character, and I can't wait to see her involvement. But in this issue, we wind up getting to see Johnny Blaze, who's got nothing, right? And so he's working for scraps. He checks into this hotel, and he is cleaning up, and on accident, he finds these underground tunnels in this hotel that the hotel manager was serving human guests to this demon for money, right? For gems and stuff like that. So Ghost Rider flames on, or, becomes the spirit of vengeance, because again, he's coming across this demon, and he fights this demon, and basically he wins. And now he's off to the next thing. This thing was so good, man. It was so dark. It was so creepy. How you got to that demon from beginning of the story to the end was absolutely awesome. I really enjoyed it, and this is a book now that is going to be permanently on my pull list. I can't wait for issue 3. If you love horror, if you like Ghost Rider, this is a book for you. All right, here we go. Coming in at number 3, we have the conclusion to the Beyond story arc. This is Amazing Spider-Man, issue 93. Hallelujah, guys. It's flipping over. I am so excited. We're going to move on to the next volume of the Amazing Spider-Man. Not excited about the artwork, what's to come, but nevertheless, we had 93 to get through first, right? And let me tell you, this book was actually really good, and I'll tell you why I liked it in a second. But let's check out the artwork in this book. Really well done. This one was done by Patrick Gleason, this artwork. So I appreciated what he did in this book. So we get to check out the artwork. I love the way Spider-Man looks. I love the big eyes. I love the reflection off of the character's eyes as well. It's just really good. There's lots of good character moments and fighting, and this book was just very emotional. And that's what I got out of this book. So with issues 91 and 90, right, my biggest gripes about them, or maybe even 89 for all that, I don't even know. No, 91 and 92. My biggest gripes is that Ben Reilly was going through a very traumatic situation, right? He doesn't remember. He doesn't remember what makes him whole. All those memories are gone, and he's trying to find out the answers or try to get them back. And in the last issues, when he was going through that trauma, they tried to sprinkle it in there with some unnecessary humor, and it made the book horrible. So what made this book good was there was no humor in this book, and we dealt with Ben Reilly's trauma, with him not remembering who he was. And that's what made this book so good. And we get to see Spider-Man truly trying to help him, say, Ben, we can get through this. Come with me, help me. He's like, no. He's like, this is your fault why this has all happened. You're not willing to help me. We got Maxine Danger throwing out this last Hail Mary pass by giving Ben Reilly this helmet, going, you put this helmet on the original Spider-Man, all your memories are going to come back. So, hopefully that the real Spider-Man would be gone. Spider-Man destroys that helmet, and it says, this is not what you want. We can work through this together. And Ben Reilly blames Peter for everything that happens. You get to see this big battle between these two. We get to see Maxine Danger kind of flee out. She dips out. They destroy partial of the building, so there's no evidence. And caught in the crosshairs are these two battling. And of course, the one who loses out at the end is actually Ben Reilly. He falls to this pit and whatnot, and then what happens is it changes somehow the genetic makeup of the character or something like that, and he becomes something much different, right? He becomes the character now known as Chasm. And you'll get to see that right here in this last page. I'll show you when it comes across, if I can ever get to it. You get to see him put on this mask here, right? And then you get to see that right here as well. And his costume is changed. He has changed. Again, he has no memories, and he kind of looks like this, right? So he's an enemy now. And my biggest thing about Ben Reilly is that he's always getting in the way of like Spider-Man's books, right? Do we need a clone of Spider-Man? No, we don't need that. We've been through that so many thousands of times. So I thought the next best thing was, let's just kill Ben Reilly off once and for all, right? Now, if you're a Ben Reilly fan, I'm sorry if I offended you. I'm not trying to offend you, but that's personally what I would want. So we don't have to deal with this clone anymore. But this is the next best thing. You make him a villain now. Now, he was a villain in Clone Conspiracy, but he was different, right? Here, it looks like his genetic makeup has changed. He doesn't remember who he is at all, and now he's just something completely different with a kick-ass suit. And I like that. Also in this issue, we get a little glimpse of what's to come in Spider-Man, the next volume. You wind up getting to see Mary Jane and Peter Parker going to move in together, which I thought was really cool. And then just as they're about to, make out or do whatever it is, we get this villain that's coming, and it says, "A road of blood is led to you. Come with me." And they're like, "Who are you?" And then that's how it ends. So obviously that's leading into the next volume, right? I thought this book was really good. For a while, this book was my number one pick, but there was other books that were better than this, and I like the direction of Ben Reilly. We didn't kill him off, so that means there is hope for him in the future, but I like how you made him a villain, and I'm okay with that. Okay, so I've been anticipating this book for a long time, and coming in at number 2 goes to Batman Beyond the White Knight. This is a book that features Terry McGinnis in the Batman White Knight universe, and the way he was introduced was quite interesting. And what has happened to Bruce Wayne in the past 10 years? Well, the dude has been in prison. So, if you know what Sean Gordon Murphy's artwork is like, and you like it, you're going to like the way this book looks. I thought it looked phenomenal. I love the way Batman Beyond looked. Terry McGinnis looked in this series, or in the first issue of this series, and all the other characters. There were some great fighting scenes. The paneling, the layouts, everything about this book was absolutely phenomenal. I really enjoyed looking at this book. And this book explored a bunch of different things, right? We got to see the Batman Beyond suit being taken by Terry McGinnis, and he is being ordered around by Derek Powers, right, who controls the GTO now, because he somehow got all of Bruce Wayne's money manipulated to him. It was Bruce Wayne that gave all that money to the Gotham by charity, since he was in jail and he can't do anything with the money, right? We wound up getting to see Harley Quinn, and we got to see her twins, much older now. They're like teens. They're like young teens or whatnot. And we get to see the son, who is the good kid, and then we wind up getting to see the daughter, who is being bullied, and she's starting to act out. She's more like the Joker. The other kid's like the Batman or whatnot. And so we get a little bit of stuff like that, of what's going on in here. And we get to see great interactions here with Bruce and Jason Todd with each other, and how Jason felt like he was being replaced by Dick Grayson. Really great character moments. Love that in this issue. And I love how these two made up with each other while they were in prison, or right before Bruce Wayne was breaking out, to stop anything that was going on or what was about to happen in Gotham, right? So what this leads into is this is going to lead into a future series with Jason Todd. Well, this was kind of the foreshadowing of that. And maybe Bruce and Jason might team up together later on in this series as well. But by the time we wind up getting to this end of this issue, we get somebody that returns that we did not expect to come back. And I was shocked by that. I did not see that. But overall, this book was so good, so well done. Could have been my pick of the week, but it just was not my pick of the week yet, or my number one as of right now, because god damn it, these Batman books, there may be 1,000 of them, but god dang, they are damn good. So, which means my number one pick of the week at this point goes to Shadow War Alpha issue 1. Now, will that book hold up? It's still yet to be determined because I still have DC versus Vampires issue 6 through 12. Issue 6 of 12. I have Silver Surfer Rebirth issue 3. I have Radiant Black issue 13. Spawn, issue 328. The conclusion to Spider-Woman, Iron Fist, issue 2. And the other book not shown here is Rogue Sun, issue 2. So, let's talk about Shadow War Alpha, issue 1. And let me tell you, if DC wrote comic books as good as they do some of their Batman books, DC Comics would be unstoppable because these two are my top two and they were really, really good this week. Okay, so let's talk about this book here. Issue 1, Shadow War Alpha. Again, really great looking book. The artwork by Bogdanovic is absolutely gorgeous. He's totally inspired by Greg Capullo's artwork. It's so well done. Love all the characters' facial expressions in this book. The action scenes are really good in this issue. Just all the way around, it's good. I mean, we get to see Deathstroke in here. Again, great facial features. Love the layouts, the paneling, the 2 pages spread. Look at this fight between Batman and supposed Deathstroke in this issue. So really great stuff. So what happens in this book? Well, Ra's is having an epiphany, right? This is coming out of the pages of Robin. And he realizes one day or one night that he is dying. He can no longer be immortal. And he hasn't done anything to change the world. He's basically failed, right? And one night he sees his son and his daughter sword fighting with each other for fun. And he's like, he realizes how alive they are. And I guess he just realizes now, I want to do good for the world before I die. So he winds up bringing Talia. They're going to have this huge press conference. Everyone's on high alert because they don't know if this is a trick or whatnot. And then all of a sudden, as he's sharing his secret to the world about the Lazarus pits, we wind up seeing an assassination attempt by Deathstroke. And you're just like, oh my God, but he's not dead. Ra's is not dead. And Batman and Deathstroke are going at it at each other. And Deathstroke's like, well, if you want to save him, you got to stop him from this grenade blowing up right next to him. Damian comes across and he's like, I can save him. I can save him. So as he's trying to, save his grandfather, here comes Batman swooping in to save the day, and all of a sudden now his grandfather is disintegrated and dead, and you're like, oh shit, and now of course Damian was pissed off at Batman before with the Teen Titans series, and now Batman says something so dumb and he totally blames Damian for Alfred's death because he's like, well, if I was there, I would have been able to save him. And then Damian's all pissed off now. And you're just like, shit, that was just mean. Like, that was just really, really bad, And now because of everything that has happened, Ra's is dead and everything else. Now this whole Shadow War is about to happen. But, oh yeah, we found out that Deathstroke wasn't the one that actually tried to kill Ra's. It was an imposter. We don't know who it is. And I didn't notice this, but he was wearing a completely different suit than his current suit in this issue. And I was like, so wrapped up in what was happening in the book. I didn't pay attention to it, dude. I was like, whoa. And then at the very end of this book, you wind up getting to see a little preview of things to come when it comes to Flashpoint Beyond. And it's kind of funny, they kind of reference 5G on this page. It says it right there. It says 5G averted. And it talks about Flashpoint. So we get a little couple pages of what's to come with Flashpoint. But this main story, this was great stuff, guys. I mean, I love this book. And like I said, if DC Comics can write other characters like they wrote Batman, DC would be unstoppable. They need to figure out something. But Shadow War Alpha is a must read. So there you guys have it. There are my top 5 books of the week. Does it hold out? Well, find out on Tuesday night, like I said, guys, and hopefully you'll be there to enjoy the show. So as always, guys, if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here. In fact, this is going to be my comic book haul of all the books I picked up for the comic book week. And guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but most importantly, keep reading your comics. Take care, guys.